Good afternoon, everyone. 4:30 on the East Coast. It is indeed a What the Frig Friday edition, a Football Friday edition of On Q. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones. We are on X. Don't forget, you can catch us on the YouTube channel. And of course, that's our 1029 FM, The Game, Coastal Sports Digital Network. Hope everyone had a wonderful sports Thursday. You are enjoying your 21st of November. 2025. Get in on the conversation. Get social with me first and foremost at Rich Q on X and IG, and of course TikTok, Rich Q on Mike. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. You guys have been fantastic. What the Frig Friday? What made you say what the frig this week in the world of sports? And maybe it started off with last night's debacle for the Buffalo Bills, which we will get into. You've got marquee games across the board in the NFL. Marquee games. And this is I guess we can say right now, the weekend where you really start to separate the boys from the men. You really start to separate which teams are legit. And let's be honest, which teams are frauds, which teams are going nowhere. Now, we kind of have an idea which teams have kind of laid down and died over the last several weeks. But now we have an opportunity to see which teams are making that late run. And as I mentioned, some of these other ones that are really, really in trouble. And I want to continue with the quarterback conversation today as well. I've got some thoughts and a couple questions I want to pose to you guys. John Bueller is going to join us in about 25 or so minutes. We certainly will get through all your comments. But I mentioned very busy weekend in the NFL. Week 12 is a month. It started last night with the Buffalo Bills on the road, mind you, against the Texans. And the Houston Texans, defensively, if you really haven't followed them this year, you say to yourself, hey, they're a pretty good defense. Last night, they pretty much showed you why arguably they're the top defense in the NFL, along with teams like the Rams, Seattle. Dallas is starting to come on a little bit. Detroit's starting to come on a little bit. Green Bay starting to come on a little bit. Cleveland with their run defense. But what I saw last night from the Houston Texans was absolutely a just, dominating performance in a game, mind you, in a game that the Buffalo Bills still had an opportunity to win by converting an absolutely insane 4th and 27. They were able to get to Josh Allen consistently. They were able to get to Josh Allen a lot. Josh Allen was banged up. You thought he was going to get knocked out of the game, perhaps knocked out of the season when he got sacked from behind and he was shaking his hand. Frustration settled in. And when it was all said and done, 8 sacks later and a couple picks later, Josh Allen played one of his worst games as a pro. And he was under duress pretty much the whole night. And the Texans win it 23-19. So that's a very impressive win by the Houston Texans. Oh, by the way, Davis Mills, if you look at how you can stretch out a 17-game season, this kid's throwing for over 4,000 yards and about 25, 30 touchdown passes. And that offense played really, really well. And here's a kid that's only 27, a third-round draft pick. And he showed you he can play a little bit. So the longer he's out there and the more they're winning and it's on film, this kid's going to have an opportunity potentially to cash in. I don't know his contract situation, but maybe cash in the offseason. And we've seen it. He's played really good football. They have won 3 straight games. He's taken over for C.J. Stroud, who's dealing with the concussion, and he's thrown 5 touchdown passes, just 1 picks, and he's got a pretty good rating. But last night, if you are a Bills fan, that was extremely troublesome. Troublesome. I would worry if I'm Bills Mafia because they couldn't run the football. And as I mentioned, Allen was under duress. He was frustrated, and it just did not look like that offense really was able to get on gear. And the other thing is, the Bills right now, they've got some issues. And the biggest issue is when you look in the AFC East, the Buffalo Bills are now 2 games back against the New England Patriots, who are just the hottest team in the NFL, winners of 8 straight. And also, you would say 2.5 back because New England already beat Buffalo in week 5, 23-20 on the road, mind you. So I like what I'm seeing from the Texans. I do not like what I'm seeing from the Buffalo Bills. I just don't. There's something a little off with this team. They've had some issues. They dropped 2 straight. They win 2 straight. They, don't even show up against Miami. They beat a banged up Tampa Bay team, and then they go on the road and they got physically dominated last night by the Houston Texans. So we'll get into that. If you got 3 or 4 really marquee games this weekend, obviously in our backyard, a couple games to dissect and to get into. The marquee one, the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas all of a sudden, and they feel pretty good about themselves because they can score a lot at home, and their defense is starting to pick them up a little bit. It's well documented and highlighted all week long what's going on with the Philadelphia Eagles and the disconnect and A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts. And now A.J. Brown scoffing at questions that he's not the same guy. He's not the same player. You got some injuries. No Lane Johnson. This is a banged up team. But this is kind of the spot, especially with the betting public, where they love the Philadelphia Eagles because you got a head coach that in these spots, more times than not, the Eagles have had they put on a pretty good performance, kind of backs against the wall. Now, you can't kind of use the us against the world mentality because you're defending Super Bowl champs. But the Cowboys right now, 4-5-1. Obviously, they had that ugly tie, but they're scoring a lot of points at home. You look at Dak Prescott, his last 16, 17 games at home against NFC East teams, he rarely, if any, loses. I look for this to kind of be a high-scoring, entertaining game. So it's one of the games we're going to document. It's one of the games we're going to highlight. Dart out again for the Giants. That's a bad spot for them. Jameis Winston is going to get the start again for the Giants, and the Giants playing it smart with Dart, dealing with the concussion. You got the Jets on the road against Baltimore. In Baltimore, even though you don't know if Lamar Jackson's 100%, they're laying 13.5 in this one. Sanders makes his first career start for Cleveland, so we'll get into that a little bit. And, as I said, you've got a situation in the NFL right now where we are looking at some of these teams and we're really saying, okay, do you have enough? Do you have enough gas in the tank to finish it off? And I'm not just talking about, winning this weekend. I'm talking about going on a run, getting to the playoffs, making a deep run. Tampa's banged up. They play the Rams. Panthers are starting to come on a little bit, playing with confidence. They got the 49ers on Monday night. We've got wall-to-wall marquee games. And the one that, I think a lot of people are curious, football fans, to watch, Kansas City and Indianapolis. Daniel Jones popped up on the injury report for the Colts with a bum ankle. He's going to be good to go. The line really hasn't moved. Casey's laying 3.5. But this is the last stand, I believe, for the Kansas City Chiefs. I believe this is the last stand for Kansas City. They can ill afford to lose this game. They can't. They haven't shown that dominance that we've seen in years past. The offense lagged behind early on in the season. They never really got their ground game going. They started to add some pieces, right? When they bring back Rice and whatnot. Kelsey's getting a little older, a little long in the tooth. Yes, you still have Patrick Mahomes. Yes, you still have Andy Reid. Yes, you've got some weapons. But this is a big game for the Kansas City Chiefs, because that AFC is pretty much like a jumbled up kind of conference. And as we know, and you know, and I know, you still can't figure out the NFL. It's a week-to-week proposition, and we can sit there from an Eagle standpoint and say, well, the road to getting back to the Super Bowl is going to be difficult, because at any given moment, you turn around and you can deal with some injuries. At any given moment, your season can be derailed because of nonsense like what we're seeing in Philadelphia. Now, the Lane Johnson injury is a big one, but you can certainly overcome it. you don't want him out for an extended period of time. But I bring that up to bring it back to the Kansas City Chiefs. They've had such a wonderful run over the last 5, 6, 7 years. They're a perennial playoff team. They're always winning the division. They're making deep runs in their playoffs, championships, Super Bowl appearances, Super Bowl wins, and they're just having a down year. They're just having a down year right now. And I believe that Super Bowl kind of broke them. And it's very hard to respond when you get waxed like that in a Super Bowl and then try to get back there. Lesser teams couldn't even sniff it the next year. I mean, listen, I remember when the Ravens absolutely throttled the Giants 34-7. You're a Ron Dixon kickoff return away from being shut out, which has never happened in the Super Bowl. Giants never responded after that. We've seen bad teams get blown out. The Raiders, Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay just annihilated them. Denver against San Diego. Seattle. Denver just annihilated them. So there have been some spots where we've seen some just bad losses, and teams have a very hard time getting back and putting it together. So we'll dive into that. I know a lot of Giants fans wants my thoughts on this weekend against the Lions, and no Dart, obviously, the Scatterboo stuff with the wrestling and Joe Shane with his burner account. I've got some thoughts on that as well. We'll mix in a little NBA. Any hot stove baseball stuff hits, we will definitely dive into it. But I want to hear from you guys as always. You can hashtag on Q, keep it locked in on a Friday edition. We are powered by our good friends over at Three Brooks Bourbon. Get ready with tea. Fresh roasted coffee, 20% off your first purchase, BYP20. And of course, do not forget, Play It Again Sports, 2 locations in Deptford and Mount Laurel. All right, quick timeout, 4:44. We'll reset the table. A lot of NFL thoughts on last night's Thursday night game. Full slate this weekend. Dallas, the Cowboys. Who's got the edge? What do you guys think? Is it much to do about nothing, the noise that's going on in Philadelphia? Or is this a pickoff spot for the Dallas Cowboys? Is this a pickoff spot? Is this a game where the Dallas Cowboys, at home, feeling pretty confident, make a statement against the Philadelphia Eagles? And even if the Eagles were to lose this game, what would be the cause for concern? Because you already have all the other stuff going on, the extraneous variables, everything going on, outside noise. But if they don't show up and offensively they struggle, it's going to be very interesting to see what all the talking heads in the fan base says come Monday after a loss against a division rival. All right, keep it locked in. Quick timeout. We'll come back on the other side. All right, welcome back, everyone. We've got about 12 to play with before we hit the 5 o'clock hour. John Bueller, 5:05. As I mentioned, no Jackson Dart has not cleared concussion protocol, has been ruled out of Sunday's game versus the Lions. You've got the Giants playing New England next weekend before their Week 14th bye. So they might sit him and then go through the bye. And again, it's all about the lack of progress in the protocol, right? And I think you got to be cautious. I really do. I think you have to be real cautious when you're dealing with young quarterbacks who've taken a lot of hits. And obviously, this kid's been banged up a little bit and he's got to learn to slide. He's got to learn to get down. I love, the tenacity and the fire and the passion he plays with, but sometimes that's not always the smart move, right? If that makes sense. Sometimes you just got to you got to know you got to live to play another down. So Winston's going to get the start. I expect the Giants to let Russell Jameis Winston throw the football. I really do. We didn't really see him take shots last week against Green Bay, but I think he's going to take some shots against the Detroit Lions. Why not? You don't have to worry about any of those conditions, right? Because you're going to be playing in that dorm in Ford Field in that dome. Lions, as I mentioned, they were sitting at 10, and now that line has moved up to 12 and a half. So you see the difference in obviously the way the betting public views the quarterback position, at least 2 to 3 point swing. So I think it's a tough spot for the Giants. They're playing out the string. They've got a lot of banged up players, and the Lions have a major loss too. We talked a little bit about Sam Laporta. If he was going to be good to go, he had back surgery. He's pretty much likely out for the season. Now that's a safety valve for Jared Goff. So injuries come at very inopportune times in the NFL. And you just have to, it's a war of attrition, man. Like a team like San Francisco that was snake bitten with injuries early on, they're starting to get a little healthy in key spots. Now, obviously, they lost some dynamic players on the defensive side of the ball for the season, but other players are coming back. The Eagles are going through it with some injuries. Tampa Bay is a banged up team. I mean, Tampa Bay is limping to the finish line right now. They really are. I mean, they've got players. Bucky Irving banged up. Igbuda is banged up. Obviously Smith and Evans on the IR. Wirtz is banged up. Bradenson's banged up. I think he might be out. Their backup center is banged up. So this is a horrible spot. A horrible spot for Tampa Bay going against a pretty damn good team that can move the football a little bit in San Francisco now in the Rams. And I'll say this, the Rams have shown that they can put up a lot of points. You might think this game is going to be played. You look at the over in this game. I think it's going to be an entertaining affair. I mentioned 49ers. The 49ers are in action Monday night. They're hosting a team right now in Carolina that's starting to come on. They're starting to come on, and they're playing really good football. You got Bryce Young. You got a young quarterback that is trying to settle in. And that's all you can ask. It's very hard to do when you don't have a lot of weapons, but you're starting to see what they're building down there in Carolina. And they're winning some football games. And they're looking pretty good at times, winning some of those football games. And that's all you can ask. AD chimes in. Q, what do you think about the pass rush for the Texans? They are absolutely legit. Yes. Yeah. So you've got Hunter and Anderson. They combined for 11 and a half sacks over the last 3 games. The Texans, they're showing you, man, defense wins games. And they're doing it with a backup quarterback, by the way. Mike in Ohio chimes in. Q, I'm a Browns fan, but I'm curious. What do you think about the Burrow situation in Cincinnati? I said this yesterday. If I am the Cincinnati Bengals, I am not playing him. I'm just not. I'm shutting him down. I just don't think there's any reason to play him. He's an injury-prone quarterback. He's still the face of the franchise quarterback. I'm just not doing it. I'm not going to put him in harm's way. And I don't want to sit there and say I can't foresee a scenario where they play him, but I can because Zach Taylor's probably trying to save his job, if that makes sense. Q, what do you think's going on this ADS? What do you think's going on with McDermott in this offense? It's the offense, but it's the defense too. It's the defense. It's the offense. It's a bad. What's going on right now at Buffalo? I mentioned this several weeks ago. The coach is on the hot seat. Do we look now at McDermott and say, it's just not working with this guy? And Allen is having a year where 2 weeks ago, not an MVP. Last week, an MVP. Now, not an MVP. Like, the offensive line is not helping him out, not keeping him upright. He's clearly frustrated. He's dealing with a lot of injuries. When I say injuries, you're talking about on both sides of the football. He's been a quarterback that's been under duress and banged up. And then clearly there is a disconnect with what's going on with their offense. I mean, listen, Josh Allen is as tough as they come. And the fact that he got sacked 8 times and still hung in the pocket, you got to give him a lot of credit. But that offensive line just absolutely collapsed. And you're not going to win many football games when your offensive line is not keeping your quarterback upright. He was sacked 8 times last night for 70 yards. He was sacked on 53% of his pressure dropbacks. I don't care who you are. I don't care who you are back there under center. You're not going to survive. Now, the problem is that unit has been consistently good, sometimes great. But now you got Houston, right? And their edge rushers, Anderson, Hunter, unbelievable. Rankin's playing well. Autry, you got the ex-Bill settling there. I mean, they were just dominating the interior. So I think the Bills right now, they're in trouble. Their pass offense graded out poorly last night because the quarterback was under duress. The fact that he was able to get rid of the ball and finish 24-34 for 253 is amazing. It's amazing. Their run offense was okay, right? Because Cook, again, he had that hot start, but then, 45 yards, he finishes with $116. Pass defense was so-so. And the run defense, played better. But they don't look like a dominant team. Their special teams is horrible, though. I had this conversation with my buddy last night. It's amazing to me in the NFL, these kickers are kicking 57, 58, 60, 62-yard field goals, and they're missing extra points left and right. Just makes absolutely no sense. Makes no sense whatsoever. But again, Bills, they're in trouble. Now, are we going to sit there and start talking about a quarterback controversy in Houston? Listen, Davis Mills is a backup. Davis Mills is getting it on film, but Davis Mills has also shown I can play a little bit in this league. I can play a little bit in this league. And when you get it on film, it's a different animal. And he's playing well. He really is. And they won 3 straight, and he's been very efficient. He hasn't turned the ball over. So 3 starts, 3 wins. If you're a Texans fan, you got to be delighted with that. You have to. Let me get to some more of these comments. Kevin C. chimes in, Q, I think it's smart that the Giants are going to hold out Dart. I would actually not play him until after the bye. What say you? Agree. Listen, Russell Wilson's not going to be on this team next year. Jameis Winston wants to be the backup. He wants to mentor and groom Jackson Dart. So again, it's another lost season. The only thing that's really gone well for the Giants this season, obviously you got to see Scadaboo, you got to see Dart. You're going to see Dart a couple more games. The offensive line has really played well, and I haven't been able to say that over the last 10 plus years. The offensive line has played well, and I give them a lot of credit for that. I give them a lot of credit. They have played really, really well, and they're keeping guys upright. They're keeping their quarterbacks upright. Their quarterbacks are able to make some plays, and that's all you can ask. And in this case, it's Jackson Dart. So the credit is there when you talk about that offensive line. I give them right now a B+. They've been playing well. Man chimes in with the eyeballs on a What the Frig Friday. I don't know. Does he have a What the Frig story in the world of sports this Friday? Who knows? So you got Cowboys, you got the Eagles, you got the Bills in trouble. Texans are starting to trend up a little bit. You got the Rams looking like they're the best team in the NFC. You got the 49ers and the Panthers on Monday night. You got Kansas City and their last stand against the Colts. And I really believe that. Now, I've been saying it for weeks, weeks, weeks. Like right now, if you're Chiefs Kingdom, if you're Kansas City, what are you thinking to yourself? Well, it's a must win. You got to start running the table a little bit and you got to play much better football. And you're looking up at a very crowded AFC, a very crowded AFC. And I know that Daniel Jones is a little banged up. Kansas City's pass defense has gotten better. Daniel Jones in a clean pocket can sling it and throw it. We know about the run defense of Kansas City. We also know that the Colts are averaging right around 6.1 a clip with Jonathan Taylor. So there's definitely the battle, the game within the game when you start to talk about these two. It's a marquee game, but I honestly believe if we're starting to say, pressure point this weekend, right? Pressure point. If there's 4 or 5 teams in the NFL that are in dire straits, a must-win scenario. Listen, I think Tampa Bay has to get a win here because they're so banged up. They just need that for their morale boost, right? I mean, they need to go into a game and they got to feel they can win the game, even though they're a banged up team and they're dealing with a lot of injuries. But this is a tough spot for them. It really is. It's a tough spot. But sometimes you got to just work through all these injuries and you got to figure out a way to get a W. Going on the road against the Rams who are laying 7, that's a difficult ask. The Panthers, is it a must win? I think it is because if we want to take the Panthers serious, like a legit threat in the NFC South or the NFC as a potential wild card team, playoff team, they better win this game because they got the Rams coming up. Now they got the Saints after that, the Bucs, Seattle, and the Bucs. So this feel good story, if you're a Panthers fan, at 6-6 can go south very fast. It can go south really, really fast. It can. So these are just, like I said, pressure points when we're starting to talk about some of these games this weekend. Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys are not really, a very good football team. They have talent. Now they're starting to put it together a little more on the defensive side of the ball, and we know what they can do offensively at home. They score a lot of points. Is this the perfect spot for Dallas at home against a team in the Philadelphia Eagles that is basically has had a substantial amount of noise, background noise this past week? I had people on Facebook, what's the hate for Jalen Hurts? I don't understand. Why are people hating on uh, Jalen Hurts? All he does is win. The numbers aren't always sexy or gaudy, but hey, man, if he was an employee, he'd get a raise every year. That might be the case. That might be the case, but you're looking to get back to the Super Bowl. Your run is not to just win a division. Your run is to make a deep run into the playoffs and get back to the Super Bowl and try to win it again. That's pretty much what they're looking to do. And it's so hard to do. And it's even harder to do when you have outside noise. And you have a lot of outside noise. And the outside noise right now is the disconnect, offensive coordinator, head coach, A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts. And then A.J. Brown has to basically come out multiple times over the last several weeks. And now he's got to respond to speculation that he's not the same player. So, again, if you want to have that debate, we can have that debate. We can have that discussion. And he's going to scoff at his level of play because sometimes the ball is not going in his direction. He's not targeted. Think about last year. If this is last year, this year, Saquon's getting all these touches and carries. A.J. Brown's pretty much phased out of this offense. And plus, he's not the number one receiver anymore. He's just not. It's Devontae Smith. So the noise, the crowd noise, it's there. Now the Eagles need to go out and silence the critics, go down to a place where the Dallas Cowboys, little juice, can score And Prescott has played very well in his career at home against the NFC East. So you just got to look at those numbers and you got to take them on face value. You really do. This is a very difficult spot for the Philadelphia Eagles laying 3.5. All right, 5:05 on a Friday edition of On Cue, powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. Don't forget 20% off your first purchase. And of course, we're on SR 1029 FM, The Game, X Platform, Coastal Sports Digital Network, my YouTube channel. Always get social with us at Rich Q on Q on X, IG, TikTok, Rich Q on the mic on a What the Frig Friday edition, as we never like to say what the frig with our next guest, but we welcome him in, who probably, I was thinking about you once I heard the Penix news, and I said, man, my guy John, he's got to be probably fed up with the Falcons right now down there in Atlanta. But John Bueller, kind enough to join us from Fanside. What's going on, brother?
Yeah, I was recording the most recent episode of the Blog and Dirty podcast, literally halfway through talking about, can we really trust Kirk Cousins to, play up to his contract for the final 7 games of the season. I saw the report that Adam Schefter said, Penix is going to have surgery to repair a partially torn ACL. And I'm just like, you know what? This is about the worst it's been as a Falcons fan since like the Bobby Petrino year. There's not a whole hell of a lot of optimism. The edge rushers are really good with Walker and Pierce and stuff. The talent's there, but like coaching's a nightmare. This team's going to win maybe 5 games this year.
Do you think they have a little buyer's remorse regarding Penix? I mean, knowing that he's injury prone.
This was something that I kind of knew about him coming out. Like he got injured at Indiana, I think twice. Washington a little banged up, but like he's always going to be a guy who's in the pocket trying to throw the ball as hard as he can. So like mobility is never going to be like his strong suit. It never really was. But you're now 2 years in. You've only had 12 starts. Thank goodness this is the year 2 and not year 3, where you have to figure out, do we give him the 5th-year option or not? So I think people know he's talented, but yeah, he does have an injury-prone label. We can't really shake that anymore.
What'd you make of last night? I mean, that's a spot where if you're a Buffalo Bills fan, you go on the road, you start to see this ascending, trending up defense of the Texans. You're going against a backup quarterback, and Allen was under duress all night long, punctuated with the 8 sacks, and he was hit. He was harassed, a couple picks. I mean, hell, they convert to 4th and 27, which is, crazy if you think about it, an opportunity to win the game, but the Texans get it 23-19. Level of concern right now, if you're a Bills fan, are we on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being, okay, full out panic mode? Where are you at with the Bills?
7.5 easily. Because look, Houston, they started the year out in that 0-3 hole. We know Stroud's been banged up, didn't play.
Yep.
We know Davis Mills is a relatively, strong backup quarterback. He's got the tools, just doesn't always put it together. I think it ultimately comes down to my biggest concern with the Bills, which is coaching. Sean McDermott doesn't do anything. He doesn't elevate the team when it becomes a stressful situation. He's requiring Josh Allen to do everything. The guy got sacked 8 times. And, you look on the Houston sidelines, that's coaching. D'Amico's a good coach. D'Amico's a guy that, empowers his players. And you're looking at a team that's trending up. I don't know if Houston's going to catch the Colts, but like they seem kind of playoff viable a little bit here. I think Buffalo is kind of like, okay, we should win the division. New England's on fire. And then you're like, okay, maybe we're just not going to win a Super Bowl with this core right now. And at this point, I'm like, if you lose in the divisionals or earlier, you have to get rid of Sean McDermott. No questions asked.
Listen, everything you're saying, I agree 100%. I echo those sentiments. I got a lot of Bills fans that were chiming in over the last several weeks, and I'm telling you right now, even going into the season, I thought he was a head coach that was really on the hot seat. And you can't allow your quarterback to take those types of hits. Now, granted, the Texans, as you mentioned, their defense coming on, the Bills' offensive line, but this team at times becomes very unhinged, and it's pretty obvious that the quarterback is Superman. And sometimes when the offensive line doesn't keep him upright, he turns into what? Clark Kent, right? And you can't expect them to jump into the phone booth every single solitary Sunday. I mean, if they make the playoffs, which they should, and get bounced in the wild card or divisional round, and the offense sputters again, and Allen's taking all these hits, you do have to make a decision as a franchise. We're talented. Thanks for getting us here, but now we need someone else to get us there? Because here's a head coach that's 7-7 in the postseason, and they've got the talent to get to the Super Bowl, but for some reason they just can't get over that hump.
One other thing. So McDermott came from Carolina. He was
Right,
on the Ron Rivera staff with,
right, right.
Cam Newton and Greg Olson, that fantastic run
Yep.
from like 13 to 15. Newton's body gave out on him, about year 8 or 9. He played a very physical brand of football. Josh Allen's a little more better, like a better passer, but they play similarly. And the guy's just taking a beating there in his late 20s, early 30s. Like, this can't sustain. I think Allen will keep playing a little bit longer, but like, you have to be concerned that like McDermott's doing nothing to really help him protect him from himself. Protect him from himself.
Yeah, the irony too is, Dable's out of a job in New York because he's running all these design runs and RPOs for his quarterback who's concussed and out again. That is, of course, Jackson Dart. I am curious, do you look at a team like the Bears and say to yourself, okay, 7-3, not sexy, just kind of going about their business. They'll probably get their 9, 10 wins and maybe, be competitive in the playoffs? Or do you see coming out of the NFC, aside from the top teams, 2 or 3, the Bears can be a sneaky team, or you're looking at them if they get in there one and done?
I think they have a little juice to them. They could be a little sneaky here. I think coming into the season, I thought the Bears were going to be a team that's going to win between 7 and 10 games. They've already won 7, so
Yep.
anything they kind of do at this point, is just icing on the cake here. I think that it took some time to figure out how Caleb Williams, the ad libber, is going to fit in like the very precise offense of Ben Johnson, and it's worked out quite well. And I think the thing that serves the Bears here is because they play complementary football off of each other. And I feel like the Bears have always kind of been so lopsided with like defense and the running game,
Yep.
not good quarterback play. They're kind of playing how Washington did a year ago, where like they've kind of got like, we just don't know any better. And I think they could get to the NFC Championship with like the right matchup, but like that's kind of their ceiling. I think if they get to the playoffs and win a playoff game, that's a fantastic year for them.
Oh, listen, you got rid of the head coach, you kept the GM, and you brought in an offensive minded head coach that can groom the quarterback, and the offensive line has done a much better job of protecting Caleb Williams. Pats in Cincinnati. You mentioned the Pats. Obviously, we've talked about them over the last several weeks. Legit. We can look at who they beat, and they're the hottest team in the NFL right now. 9-2, 5-0 on the road. I don't understand why, even if Joe Burrow is cleared, if he's healthy, why are you going to put him out there in a lost season?
Because Zach Taylor's job is on the line. I think that that's really the only thing. I think Duke Tobin's job is on the line too. He's not the GM. He's kind of like the de facto, like Will McClay is there in Dallas. Like, we know that Jerry Jones and Mike Brown have their hands all over everything as octogenarians for good, bad, or ugly. Cincinnati, they got to try to like have some sort of a tone setting thing, because when Burrow's out there, he's just a galvanizer. His teammates rally around him. You can't have 3 straight years where it's just been nothing close to the playoffs. And I understand it's a lost season. He is injury prone too. It's a tough dichotomy to put him back out there, because the Patriots have just kind of been a buzzsaw for like the better part of 2 months now, and you don't want to ragdoll Burrow even more. But like players and coaches don't take, organizations do. Um, I don't know. I feel like the Bengals, they need to probably get like a new coaching staff in there. But like, as long as Zach Taylor is under contract, the cheapest person known to mankind, Mike Brown, is not going to eat a cent to that.
Well, yeah, I mean, but again, you can't get faulted for injuries, but you certainly can get blamed if you keep putting them out there, right? With
Right.
certain design and play calls. It's kind of like the theme, right, with some of these teams that backs against the wall and some of these head coaches. Kansas City, the betting public is looking at Kansas City. This is the spot for them. Mahomes at home. Here we go. We don't trust Indianapolis. Captain, Indiana Jones, Danny Nichols dies, whatever, dealing with the ankle injury. It's all about running the football against Kansas City. And you can pass a little bit, even though Kansas City has a pretty good pass defense. I think Jones sitting back in the pocket, the offensive line keeps him clean. He's going to have some opportunities. They're going to rely on the ground game. Now, I've said this pretty much the entire week, and actually looking ahead to this game last week, I think this is it. After that Denver loss, to me, if you're Kansas City, this is make or break. Like, this is a must-win game. I thought Denver delivered, the gut shot, right? And maybe the Colts can now deliver the knockout blow.
Yeah, this is a situation critical for the Chiefs. You got to win this game. You got to protect your own turf, and you got to do the one thing that you struggle with. Because if you don't do this, the chances of you playing in the AFC Championship are pretty much gone. They become like it's still mathematically possible because like they'll make the playoffs and whatnot, and we know it's a different season there. But if you can't come up dead versus both the Broncos and the Colts in this season and expect to be playing on their level come meaningful football there in January. But I think about this like me growing up in like the 2000s and stuff when it was like that era of Chiefs football where like they couldn't win like a playoff game. They could never stop the run. Like they were like horrendous at it for like 8-10 years, and it always let them down in the postseason. And it kind of feels like, maybe we're kind of on the other side of the crest there with the Chiefs. We're like, okay, we've kind of gotten back to bad habits. Maybe we're just going to go back to being what we've been forever, which is like a 10-7 team, and we'll make the playoffs. Maybe we won't win a game, but you have Mahomes, which is the ultimate wild card. But you also wonder how much longer is Andy Reid going to keep doing this?
Well, the other thing too is when you look at Kansas City as a whole, all those years they basically got to bye at home, win
Yeah,
one game, and you're hosting championship games. You're hosting AFC championships. I can't envision a scenario as a wild card. They have to go on the road 3 times as a wild card team, divisional round, and the AFC championship. You're asking a lot, man,
yeah.
even for Kansas City, right?
Yeah, that's a different kind of rep in the postseason. A lot of experience that you've not had in those spots. So like you got to win in very adverse situations time and time again. And they could probably do it once, maybe 3 times, maybe twice, not 3 times in a row.
Yeah, yeah. Agree. John Bueller fan side. Kind enough to join me Friday edition on Q, powered by our good friends over at Played Against Sports, Three Brooks Bourbon. Get ready with tea, and of course, fresh roasted coffee. You've got Cleveland, which the only reason I'm bringing up Cleveland is because again, if you got a fourth, fifth round draft pick and his name's Joe Smith, we're not having this conversation ad nauseum. But Shador Sanders gets his first career start against a bad Raiders team, and they're still getting 4. Cleveland is on the road. I just said this the other day when it came about. He can go 8 of 16 for 86 yards and 2 picks, or he can go 19 of 27 for 223 and 2 touchdowns. And when I come on the air Monday, I'm not going to underreact or overreact because I just want to see a sample size, and a half plus or 1 game and a half is not going to do it for me. Now, I think it's a blessing in disguise. You never want to see a player get injured, but the fact that Gabriel, the only way Sanders was playing this year is if Dylan Gabriel got hurt. Let's
Yeah.
just call it for what it is.
Yeah, because you're dealing with like the coaching staff wanting one player, the ownership wanting another. Ownership wanted Gabriel, the coaching staff wanted Sanders. It's
Right.
kind of like what Griffin and Cousins way back in the day in Washington. So you're absolutely right. We just want to see a sample size. We want to see him play a full 4 quarters to see what he can do within the
Yep.
context of Kevin Stefanski's offense. I'm not going to overreact to everything because, like, we've done that before. We've all done that with everything
Oh,
with Shador. And look, the Raiders are awful. The Raiders, the buyer's remorse of trading for Geno Smith and the Pete Carroll thing, like as a Falcons fan, where it's completely hit the fan. There are a few places in the NFL where I think it's worse, and it might be worse in Las Vegas.
well, you talk about, the dynamics, right, within that locker room and kind of the tug of war. If it's a GM, if it's the head coach, is it the ownership group? Now you got a situation brewing at the worst particular time with the Philadelphia Eagles where you've got a quarterback, a wide receiver, not on the same page, offensive coordinator under fire, the media wanting to know what the hell's going on, former Eagle great Deshaun Jackson basically saying, hey, man, it's deeper than the X's and O's. Now, that's code for, is it potentially a woman involved? Is it something so personal? Like you don't want to speculate, but when
No,
you say it's deeper than the X's and O's, we're men, so we sit back and say, "Oh, here we go. What are they arguing about? What's the issue?" I just think that Hertz is cut from a different cloth. Chip on the shoulder, how to prove himself, business like AJ Brown, a little more easier to him, not getting his targets, he reps, he's frustrated. And then, of course, he's got to push back when the media suggests he's not the same player. You would take all that, stick it in the stew, and say they're going to get their doors blown off against the Dallas Cowboys. When, if you know the Eagles or followed them over the last several years, they actually thrive in this spot. Like they thrive off drama and nonsense and adversity. And part of me is like, yeah, they're going to go down there and wax them. But the other part is, well, Dallas, got a little juice over the last couple weeks and they're feeling pretty good. And, maybe they can just start jabbing the Eagles a little bit. So the situation within that locker room, do you think that'll remedy itself? Or do you believe this team is pretty much inching closer and closer to a full out implosion?
This is kind of the adversity that Mike Tomlin always talks about with the Steelers, which I just think is fabricated nonsense. Like the Eagles just have a lot of personalities, and I think that like Sirianni kind of, ignites that a little bit. AJ Brown's is interesting because you've got Hurts and then you've got Devontae Smith, both Alabama guys cut from like the same sort of cloth. Whereas like with AJ Brown, like you play at Ole Miss, you used to share the field with like DK Metcalf. It's a different kind of football player here. But you're absolutely right that like these are the situations wherever we think that like we want to cross the Eagles off, they find a way to use the combustibility and put it together and pull out a win. I think the issue with Dallas is Dallas just doesn't have it defensively this year. I think Schottenheimer has done a pretty good job with Dak and company offensively. My colleague Cody Williams is a Cowboys fan, so he's said the praises of Shotty this year. But Eagles, just 1 week at a time, and I think it'll work out for them this week.
I think Dallas's defense they played better, but at home they can score a lot of points. And
Yeah.
Eagles offensively haven't been able to do diddly. Like their offense in back-to-back weeks. Now, if you want to sit there and say, well, hold on a second, Q, Green Bay and Detroit have a pretty damn good defense. Okay, fine. But, if Dallas is exploding for 28, 33, 35 points at home, then I think that's going to be tough sledding. The other thing is, for a fact they're going to try to force feed the ball to A.J. Brown. And here's something, a side note. The one player I haven't heard gripe about stats, touches, carries, statistics has been Saquon Barkley. And look at the season he had last season, historic season. He's not even going to remotely sniff that. So this might be the week where they force feed Saquon the football. And then, Dallas sits there. All right, we're going to start stacking the box. Now, AJ, you've got your opportunity to win these one-on-one matchups and Goddard and Smith. I like Dallas in this game. I do. I think they're a live play in this game at home. Prescott, NFC East. Sometimes you're right for the picking, and I think this might be the. And it doesn't mean the Eagles are not going to be a playoff team. They're running away with the division, but I think this is a week they get picked off.
You bring up a lot of good points here, and this is kind of why it's like just a stay away game for me because like I can see either team winning with the two scenarios that we talked about. I was thinking about this with Barkley. When you have a season like that where you are the ultimate bell cow, usually the running back like pulls back considerably. Maybe they're kind of saving him for the postseason. He's like, what, I got it. I think back to like what the historic Eddie George years for Tennessee, and then like he wasn't quite the same player, but they used him in the postseason effectively here. Relatively the same age at the same cross section of their career. So I think Barkley is just knowing like maybe I don't quite have it physically this year, but you know what? When push comes to shove and they're going to need me, I'll come through.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It will be very fascinating on Monday if they lose this game, say like 35-17, and the offense really struggles because then the questions will still they'll still come about. Tampa Bay banged up the Rams, and again, I just look at this, and the Rams are getting a team at the right time, and that's Tampa Bay. A lot of injuries, especially on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, the Rams are a team that you're like, never say die. This is a team that I've been shorting all the way through, and I've been wrong every step of the way. But I'm trying to, turn it around and kind of pull for my guy, Matthew Stafford, see what he can do. They're a team out there like, what? They could win the Super Bowl. I'm not going to rule that out there. There's been moments throughout the season where like it's kind of presented itself for like they may have the mettle to do that. Not everybody does. Again, we're at the good part of the season now, Rich, where like we start to see these things like Thanksgiving
Preparation.
on. Yeah. And Rams are well coached. They've had a collection of players there that have, played in the postseason for year after year after year. I think last year's playoff run, losing the Eagles, like I think in the divisional, I think that kind of reignited a fire in them that I, for some reason, overlooked. Which I was foolish to do so. I do think the Rams are a team very much in play to come out of the NFC this year.
I think they're a very good team. If the 49ers were at full strength, we'd be talking more about the
Hey,
49ers, but they're still 7-4.
yeah, you're
And
in a good spot there too. You got plenty of time on your side.
yeah. And they got the Panthers this week. And now Bryce Young, we talk about these young quarterbacks, like sorry to bring it up. Was that an aberration with that 400-yard plus performance against your Falcons, or are you starting to believe a little more into Bryce Young?
I just think Dave Canellis is just a fantastic head coach. I think he's just got a really good grip of what his players are. Carolina's about a year away from having enough talent to really challenge Tampa in the division. Young was talented too. He's just small of stature. They got to get some more guys defensively, but when Young has a good game plan, particularly going against the Falcons, he's like, yeah, we're going to throw for 350 yards. He's played
Mm.
phenomenal the last 3 times Falcons have gone up against him. There are levels to this. Like, I don't necessarily ever know if he's going to be like a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, but he'll have some Pro Bowl caliber years down the line. But like, this isn't a guy that I don't think is ever going to win a Super Bowl, but he's kind of like a fringe franchise quarterback. He played pretty well. And he also got banged up a little bit too at the Falcons pass rush. Guys really tough. So even though he plays for a division rival, I do root for what he does out there.
I know I got you for a couple more minutes. Got some college football commenters chiming in on X and on Facebook. Q always loved the spot with John. Can we talk a little college football? Yeah, why not? He wants to know what's your thoughts on Missouri and Oklahoma. Do you like Oklahoma laying the 6.5?
That is a very interesting spot here because everybody is like, oh, Oklahoma is absolutely going to make the playoff because they just got to play Mizzou and then they got to play LSU, two teams
Mm-hmm.
that are like not as good as we thought they would be. But what people forget is Mizzou Oklahoma was a rivalry game back in the Big 8 and Big 12. I think Mizzou's got a. They've just been beaten up with the quarterback with Bo Pribula out for the year, Sam Horn the backup. You've got the freshman Matt Zollers out there. This is a spot where, like, I think Missouri makes it very interesting, but I do think Oklahoma would probably come out on top here. I'd probably stay away from this, but like, if Oklahoma wins, it's going to be maybe like between 5 and 10 points. Again, that's kind of why I want to stay away there. But Sooners for sure.
Mark and Wallingford chimes in. He wants to know, John, what do you think now of Arch Manning? He's so hit or miss. He's such an enigma and inconsistent. I can't take it. OU gets the win, comes back, beats Vandy, and then does nothing against Georgia. Where are you again? Where are you when it comes to Arch Manning? I think you said they needed to win what, 9 games?
They have to be and they got Arkansas this week. Arkansas is
Yes,
awful. Again, Arkansas hates Texas, so like anything can happen there. They're gonna Texas will probably win that game for sure.
but then
But
they
the
have A&M. They have
Mhm.
A&M goes out the
Yeah,
season.
yeah, and if you're 9-3 and you beat A&M, which they're going to be 11-0 at that point, you're near that cut line. You're near that 10 seed. You're like, okay, maybe we can get in. I'm dubious of that because at the start of the year, I've always said you have to win 1 of 3 games. You have to win,
Mm-hmm.
in Columbus at Ohio State, in Gainesville versus Florida, and in Athens versus Georgia, and you couldn't do it at any point. And I think how ugly the Georgia game flipped on its head sticks in people's minds pretty quickly. I do feel bad for Arch in some ways. Like, I don't think he asked for this. He plays a lot more like his grandfather did back at Ole Miss and for the Saints, more so than like his uncles do.
Right.
He's got some move to him, but like Texas can't run the football. I think in their 3 times they played Georgia since they joined the SEC, they've combined for like 83 yards in 3 games. It's not good.
Let me pull up a couple more. I think we already got Mark. Kevin and Jackson chimes in. John, who do you think is the clear-cut winner right now when it comes to the Heisman? Is it Mendoza?
I would probably go Mendoza right now. I feel that like it's a narrative, it's a stats award. He's got the combination of both. He's a guy that we're looking at is going to be a top 5 pick in the draft. I think it's going to
Plus
be him.
5,500, by the way, to start the season.
Yeah, I mean he was decent at Cal. It's kind of crazy. He went to the same high school as Mario Cristobal at Miami, and he didn't go play there. It's so the fact that he's out there thriving for Chris Signetti. There's other guys out there that I think will vie for the Heisman. Gunnar Stockton's got some
Hmm.
runway. We can see Diego Pavia could be in there as well, and then Marcel Reed at A&M, Julian Sayin at Ohio State. They got to play somebody who's good. We'll see what he does versus Michigan. But I would say if Indiana, you beat Purdue and then you beat Ohio State in the Big Ten championship, I don't really see how anybody else like overtakes him. Not even like Marcel Reed playing out of his mind versus Texas, or Gunnar Stockton playing ridiculous versus Georgia Tech.
Andrew chimes in. Q, enjoying the banter and the NFL talk. Do have a question for both you guys. Does it seem like this year in the NFL, teams like Cincinnati, Kansas City, and the Buffalo Bills are like, yeah, we got a franchise quarterback. Let's just see if it can drag us into the playoffs. Uh, I mean,
Yeah,
it's yeah, that's not a bad thought.
no. There's just so much there's so much upheaval at the top. Like we're really trying to put a lot of stock and faith into what Denver and Indianapolis can do. We saw Denver kind of make a climb from like a year ago. Indianapolis kind of came out of nowhere. So like they've kind of gotten on a run here. But if you've got a franchise quarterback and you've been playing in these postseason games for years, again, this is not untrodden territory. It's a new season. You owe it to yourself to try, which I think is
Yeah,
kind of cool for those teams.
yeah. Franchise chimes in. Lastly, on college, wants to know, John, who can ill afford to take an L this weekend?
Ooh, I'll tell you this:
Good one.
whoever loses the big game of the week between USC and Oregon is not making the playoff. Especially Oregon. Like if Oregon loses to USC, they're done
Um,
because USC would take their spot and probably out of the Big Ten. It's Oregon does not. Their best wins over
Oregon has
Iowa.
one loss, right?
They've got one loss. They lost at home to 10 by to lost at home by 10 to Indiana. But the problem is they haven't beaten anybody who's good. Like all of their wins have come against teams who've already fired their coach. Like there's not a lot of quality there. Like the Big Ten's going to get Indiana and Ohio State in, and then you're kind of looking at, okay, is Oregon going to do it? USC is close. Michigan's a little bit further behind, and then Illinois has got a really quality team, but they've got 3 losses. They're not going to get in. So
No, it's listen. It's a good. I just put up their schedule. It's a good point. I mean, they haven't. You're talking about quality wins. They lost to Indiana, as you mentioned. They beat Iowa, which was a close game. Other than that, you look at who was on their schedule. I mean, you can't fault them. Oh,
no,
they did beat Penn State,
hmm and
but
Penn
oh,
State's awful now.
speaking
But
of
like
which, what'd you think about Franklin taking a job right away?
I tell you what, like that's a fantastic landing spot for him. They
Really, that's a good land on your feet.
Yeah, Penn State recruits the Tidewater region down there in like Norfolk, Newport News there, and that's kind of always been like an area that like when Virginia Tech is good, that's like Vic and like D'Angelo Hall were from. Like when you're able to recruit that region and you can bring it to Blacksburg, I think also like if he does what he did at like Penn State and Vanderbilt, like he'll have Virginia Tech back in the top 4 or 5 in the ACC right away. The big thing is he's got to figure out the coordinators because he's not really affecting change on the sidelines when it hits the fan. He's just a CEO type now, but I think this is a good opportunity for them. I'm curious what Penn State's going to do. I think they're probably leaning Eli Drinkwitz out of Missouri. I think that's
Mm.
probably although the guys on the team like the interim coach there a lot, but I you don't fire James Franklin to hire an interim.
No, no, no. That doesn't. No, 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 no. That it doesn't work like that. It might work like that in the pros, but it doesn't work like that in college. The pod this week, and I'm sure it's going to be college football heavy and some Atlanta Falcons talk.
Yeah, the Falcons were just like we're playing the Saints, so it's our biggest rival. Good look at see what Kirk Cousins can do, for the final 7 games that he's starting here. Trying to see like if you keep losing, like they're gonna have to make a change at head coach here pretty soon, probably at the end of the year. So kind of going through like the 5 stages of grief of breaking up with Raheem Morris there with the Falcons. I wanted to believe him; he's a nice guy. It just doesn't work. And then obviously in the college sort of sphere, the second to last week of the regular season, we're all kind of about the playoff. It's more or less cupcake week this week. A lot
Yeah,
of teams in the SEC aren't playing anybody significant, but like we're getting to a point where like we kind of know who's going to be in the playoff. We kind of know where some of the seeding is, but it's so far. We still got plenty of time to figure out who's going to win the group of 5. Is
yeah,
the ACC even going to get a team in? Where's Notre Dame going to be finished? It's my favorite time of the year right now.
yeah. We'll get some more clarity too. next week. Always appreciate it, brother. You got college football, you got NFL. Everyone check out the pods, follow him on social. Have a good turkey day. I know we'll be back in the saddle together, hopefully on Friday, but always appreciate a couple moments, pal.
All right, you do the same. Happy Thanksgiving. See you next week.
All right. There you have it. Our guy, John Bueller. Great stuff. Got some Facebook comments coming in on the NFL. We'll rip through the games. Then we got to wrap it up. We got to call hoops later on this evening. Quick timeout. We'll come back and we'll close it out. All right, welcome back, everyone. Good stuff from John Bueller. Always appreciate him for a couple moments. Friday edition on Q. Rich Quinones. Let's rip through these games real quick. We went in depth on BYP, myself and Lloyd Vance. I mentioned Aaron Rodgers banged up with the Steelers. I did say I like the Bears at home, laying the 2.5. Starting to believe in Williams. Cincy, you need to just shut down Burrow. Patriots are just a freight train right now. I think Patriots win this game. Cincinnati will cover. Giants, Lions laying 12.5. Bad spot for the Giants. The line moved because there's no Jackson Dart. Winston gets to start. Lions no Laporta, but they still have too many offensive weapons. Giants defense is going to get overwhelmed in this one. Grab the Lions and the points. Vikings and the Packers. You know I don't like what the Vikings are doing. I think they're going to need a quarterback, as crazy as it sounds. I'm not a believer in McCarthy. I'm not a believer in the Packers either, but they are at home laying 6. They're a touchdown better, though. Give me Green Bay. Seattle and the Titans, good spot, bounce back game for Sam Darnold against a bad team. 13 is very high, but Seattle wins this number. Indianapolis and the Chiefs, I think this is the knockout blow right now if you're a Kansas City Chiefs fan. Colts should be able to run this football. Jones will be okay to go as long as he doesn't turn it over. This will be a big road win for Indianapolis if they can get it. I'm going to grab them with the points. Jets and the Ravens don't really have too much of a feel on this one. Gun to my head, the Ravens easily in this one. Jets go back to Brissett. Cleveland and the Raiders play the under in this one. There's a reason it's 36.5. Bad quarterbacking play all around. Sanders gets his first career start. Jacksonville Cardinals, no desire for this game. Eagles and the Cowboys. It's a game we've talked about over the last several days. I just think this is a spot where the Cowboys are confident. They're 3-1 at home, or 2-1 at home. They score a lot of points at home. Prescott, NFC East, at home against these opponents. Eagles, Washington, and the Giants. He rips them apart. They put up a lot of points, and the defense is starting to play. Now, history would say the Eagles in this spot figure out a way to win. Don't discount when all the noise is there, the drama, all the nonsense, the smoke and mirrors. They rally and they play their best game of the season. That could be the case. I just don't believe it's going to be this weekend. And it's not a crushing loss if the Eagles lose this one. I'll grab Dallas and the 3.5. No desire to even entertain that Atlanta Saints game. And the Bucks and the Rams, the only thing I'm playing with this one is the over, and we'll document and highlight Monday Night Football, Cleveland, and the 49ers. All right, that's going to start wrapping up. Good stuff from John Bueller. Appreciate you guys always commenting in, keeping us locked in on a What the Frig Football Friday edition of On Q, powered by our good friends over at Get Ready with Tea, Fresh Roasted Coffee, 3 Brooks Bourbon, and of course, Played Against Sports, South Jersey, 2 locations, Mount Laurel and West Deptford. Have a good Sports Friday. We might sneak on the air for about a half an hour, 45 minutes. Tomorrow, we got the fights in AC. You can check that out on BXNG TV, Boxing TV, the Next Generation, part of the Vire Network at the Hard Rock. And then we got hoops later on this evening. And you got the full slate of NFL games on Sunday. But as always, we'd like to say, have a good Sports Friday. Appreciate everyone keeping us tuned in and locked in. Enjoy your slate of NFL this weekend, college football, NBA, and we will certainly be back in the saddle on Monday for a Man Up Monday edition of On Q, and we will do it again. Until then, I'm Rich Quinones. Be safe, be sound. Hasta luego, buen día.